If they hear me, they'll hurt me. Hey, Most Amazing Top 10 family, welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. I'm your host, Che Dorena. I've given you guys so much good stuff and you keep coming back. No matter how many weird stories of creepy demons walking around pretending to be kids' best friends I tell you, you just want another one to pack right on top of it. The Most Amazing Top 10 family loves these videos. And if you're fans of Most Amazing Top 10, I'm gonna let you know that we have Most Amazing Top 10 merch, like this shirt I'm wearing right here. Use the offer code MA10 to get $5 off. But back to today's video, which is of course Top 10 Demons Pretending to be Imaginary Friends Part 3. If you haven't seen Part 1 or 2, then you should go see that right now. What are you doing? Who starts a trilogy at the third one? That's such a weird thing to do. Don't do that. All of you guys watching at home, I would love it if you would like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Also stick around for the whole video because I'm going to be reading out comments from the Top 10 Demons Pretending to be Imaginary Friends Part 2 video. And if you guys need more Most Amazing Top 10 content, come check us out on Instagram and Facebook. It's a great way to get to know myself and all the other hosts here a little bit better. And without taking any longer, let's get into this list. At number 10 we have Angel. A demon naming itself Angel. Seems like a plan so dumb it might work. That's like going into a bank with a gun and being like, oh, I'm the vault inspector. Nothing to see here. Just came to look at the vault and I'll be on my way. Why do you have that big bag with the dollar sign on it? Oh, no reason. That's just my bag I carry all my toys in to give to the kids at the hospital. Nothing to worry about. This one was thrown on Reddit by Redditor Sword Rallier. He wrote about when he was a kid and he had no friends, which is a very huge bummer to start this story. Well, to fight this tragic case of loseritis, he made up an imaginary friend named Angel. This was fitting because Angel was his middle name. I mean, he could have got a little more creative. You can literally name this thing whatever you want, but I'll let it slide. Well, him and Angel would play and our narrative Redditor would have a great time. That's until he started to make friends. Once he took a step out of Loserville and people started to hang out with him, Angel would get angry. He would start to cause trouble, break things, and hurt people. Sword Rallier would have to make up excuses to explain Angel's behavior. So what do you think about this? Do you think this was a demon following this poor kid around, or do you think he manifested an entity to explain his own bad behavior? Does Angel the demon not exist, and it's all just in this Redditor's head as he attacks the people around him? At number 9 we have Betsy. This story starts off when the writer of this post was only 5 years old. Her mom walked out on her sister, and her dad. It was now her dad's job to watch them both, but because of his wife leaving him, he started to turn to booze. After some time they moved into a new neighborhood where the writer knew no one and quickly made friends with a young girl named Betsy. The two would play almost every day. Betsy would show her around town, and once they grew close, she went over to spend the night at Betsy's house. But eventually Betsy moved away, and then the two lost contact. Now years later she's in her early 20s and she was talking to her dad and her sister about Betsy, and they both told her that Betsy wasn't real, that she was an imaginary friend, and when she would play with her she would just be talking to herself. This conversation turned into an argument, and then she asked her dad, well then whose house did I stay at that night? Her dad told her that that's the reason I don't drink anymore. And that's where the story ends. This one sounds a little more like it was made up with a cliffhanger, but it could be true. Demons posing as little girls so they can brainwash you until you feel safe and then try to steal you away. At number 8 we have the Green Man. This one comes way of Redditor X Riot Starter 13X. Great name. He said when he was a kid he had an imaginary friend called the Green Man. He was a very tall guy with a doctor's mask on and he wore green scrubs. On top of this, he was covered in blood. Some kids choose flying elephants for their imaginary friends, others have some dude who just worked a 12-hour shift in the ER. This imaginary friend would freak his parents out, so they sent him to a psychiatrist who determined that this was their son's way of dealing with his sick grandparents. He had been spending a lot of time in hospitals visiting them, so they chalked this up to him just having a big imagination. But Riot Starter swears this guy was real. He would set a place for him at the table when his family would sit down to eat, and I can't imagine a better hiding place for a demon than a hospital. So many fresh souls to torment. At number 7 we have Boy in the Tree. A father and daughter are walking through the park and they come to a tree. The little girl says, hey dad, look, there's a little boy in the tree. And the dad looks up there, but there's no one in the tree. He asks his little girl what the boy looks like, and she starts to describe him, his clothes, his shoes, his face, his hair. The dad is pretty freaked out, and then the two of them leave. That night they're back at home, and when everyone is asleep, the dad is woken up by a scream coming from his daughter's room. He runs in there and she is in the corner crying. He asks his daughter what's wrong and she says she told the little boy to come stay with us and now he's not the boy. He's trying to take me away. Thankfully the dad was quick to act. He had the house blessed and then there was no sign of the boy anymore. But he never forgot the scream that woke him up that night. Spooky. At number 6 we have Alfred. I grabbed this one off of Reddit and it kinda makes my skin crawl. This Redditor wrote about an old man that would visit them during the day and his name was Alfred. He would sit by her while she watched TV and her mom was making dinner. Her mom never thought anything of this because she was a very young girl, she was only about 5 at the time. But every now and again Alfred would tell her to stop watching TV and go play in the yard, to go dig in the dirt. She would tell him no because she didn't want to get dirty before dinner. So Alfred started showing up at night and in the morning trying to get the girl to play in the dirt in the backyard. She would ignore him, but after her and her mom moved out, the house got demolished for a new build. When they dug up the ground, they found 4 bodies of people who previously lived in the house. Do you think Alfred was trying to warn her or show her where he wanted her to end up? At number 5 we have the children. This person wrote about the home she grew up in where there was so much paranormal activity she had to move out. When she was just a young girl, probably around 3 or 4, she would see small children run through the house. Not completely, but just glimpses, them running down hallways, sometimes in the backyard. This would increase more and more until she started to play with them. They would partake in games and her parents never really thought it was weird because they lived in such a secluded area. So it'd be normal for a young girl to make up some imaginary friends to play with. As she played with them more and more, they asked her to start to do dangerous things, like take knives from the kitchen and hide them in her room, or take a lighter and burn the drapes. She was young, but she knew this behavior was wrong, so she denied them. Then things started to get bad. Loud bangs could be heard throughout the house at night, and on more than one occasion the little girl woke up screaming with scratches on her body. The children would talk to her and tell her that they would hurt her family unless she listened. Throughout these paranormal activities, she told her family that it was these children, but they didn't want to believe her until her mother saw them. Late one night she looked out the kitchen window and saw what had to be a dozen children staring back at her with black pits for eyes. They moved out shortly after that. Can't blame you. At number 4 we have Hook. This next one is going to make you feel so helpless. Dominic wrote this and he said when he was a kid he would visit his grandparents quite often. If he ever went into the basement, he would see a man there who he called Hook because he was always carrying around a long curved hook. The man didn't talk, but he would smile at the boy. He told his grandparents about him, but they just laughed. They thought it was just a child's imagination. Eventually they got a little worried, so they brought a priest in to see if he could do anything. After the priest came in to visit, Hook told Dominic that his grandparents were going to go away because they were trying to get rid of him. The next week, both his grandparents died in their sleep. He never went back to the home because he was too afraid. But the house still stands and there's people living there right now. At number 3 we have Scotty. Be careful who your friends are or you can end up with a situation like this. The person writing the story said that they were in elementary school at the time and himself and his friend Ryan befriended a new friend, a very quiet, very awkward kid named Andrew. He didn't really talk to people in class. He would often talk to himself, but it seemed like he was engaged, like someone was there. After the writer and Ryan got to know Andrew a little bit more, they decided to have a sleepover at Andrew's house. They had fun during the day, but that night they were all sleeping in Andrew's living room. A writer was woken up by Andrew standing over him and making a high-pitched squeaking noise. This was so loud that it woke up Ryan sleeping next to him. The two of them were frozen with fear as Andrew squeaked. The noise slowly died down until Andrew was silent and then he said, "Scotty wants you to leave." The two boys were so freaked out that they got up to go tell Andrew's mom, but as soon as they moved, Andrew let out a booming scream. It was so loud that the boys started to tremble and Andrew's mom came bolting down the stairs. When she came into the room, she flipped on the lights and that's when they saw scratches all over Andrew's arms. Andrew's mom then held him down and kept repeating, "Scotty isn't real, Scotty isn't real." After Andrew calmed down, she drove both the boys home. Then they didn't talk to him for a long time, and finally when they did, he said, "Don't worry, Scotty's gone now." At number 2 we have Bad Friend. It's always nice to get a scare when you're visiting someone's home. A young man was having dinner at his professor's house with his professor's wife Susan and his son Jacob. During the dinner, Jacob kept looking into the hallway nervously. The writer of this story could tell that Jacob was frightened because of the look on his face. The professor eventually asked his son if he was seeing one of his friends in the hallway. The boy said yes, and the professor said, "A good friend or a bad friend?" And Jacob answered back, bad friend. So our visitor asked the young boy, why is he a bad friend? To which the boy said, sharp hands. Yeah, that's gonna be the last time I come over for dinner. And for the number 1 spot, we have Morey. A guy came to a dude's house, he found out that he was the father. Whoa, I'm just kidding. Our final story comes from Reddit, and I think it's the freakiest one we've had in the series so far. This takes place in Florida, where a girl was visiting her little cousin and her aunt and uncle. She was spending a week there. The first day, everything went normal until it was time to sleep, because she had to sleep in the attic. Not super creepy because the attic had been refinished and was actually pretty nice. What was weird was how she was woken up. That night, her little cousin woke her up standing right next to her bed. It was 3 AM and she was a little shocked, but she stayed up talking to him. He kept talking about a friend named Morey who lived in his room with him. This happened a couple more times, so she decided to ask her aunt and uncle about his imaginary friend. They both had never heard of him and her cousin denied it. That night she was woken up again, but this time her cousin wasn't friendly. He was very angry and he kept asking, why did you tell them? Eventually, he calmed down and went back to bed, but the following night, she was woken up by a thumping under her bed. She was terrified, but she went to see what was under there and she saw her cousin curled up in a ball. And he said, I have to stay here so Morey doesn't hurt you. He wants to hurt you. This obviously scared the crap out of her, so she ran out of the attic and out of the house. Her aunt and uncle came out and found her outside. The creepiest part about this whole story is years later, she brought it up with her aunt and uncle and cousin, and all of them denied it and said that none of it ever happened. Alright, that is our list, and as promised, I'm going to be reading out the comments from the top 10 demons pretending to be imaginary friends part 2 video. CJ Lou wrote, you should put fake friends in the list, cause mine are worse than demons. I mean, you just need to get better friends. You should have a solid vetting process, like have a written and oral exam for anyone who wants to be your friend. If they pass, you can follow them back on Instagram, and if not, you block them and never talk to them again. Duh. Soul Sister Smith wrote, it's a demon, it's not Che. Che would never cut his beautiful fro. I didn't cut my fro. If you look in the last video, I just washed my hair. See, the thing with my hair is when I wash it, it shrinks down into like curls, and then when it dries, I can pick it back out to an afro like this. It's like magic, but not as nearly exciting. And King Dawn wrote, why do demons always have to be someone's imaginary friend? Why can't it be angels or gods being someone's imaginary friend? Maybe they do that stuff, that's just not what this list is about. There could be a ton of stories of angels helping people out and talking to little kids, but I just haven't looked for them. What I want to know is why when a demon is your friend, it always wants to hurt you. Like, why can't you get a demon that tells you to have sex while gambling and eating lasagna? Like, where are the fun demons? Alright everyone, that is our list. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Also, you guys know we have Most Amazing Top 10 merch. If you want something like this, go check it out and use the offer code MA10 to get $5 off. And if you guys need more Most Amazing Top 10 content, be sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook, because there's so much more stuff over there for you guys to check out. Until next time, I've been Che Arena, and I hope I don't have an imaginary demon friend after all these videos I've done. Bye.